So I'm going to start with Slackware packaging.
Yay!
Mostly because once we get to the Arch packaging, you'll kind of see where they got their influences from. Arch is not based on Slackware, but they have similar philosophies and there's some similar design patterns in there. In my opinion, Slackware at this point is kind of a dead project. The Slackware diehards will probably hate me for saying that, and I am sort of a Slackware diehard or an ex-Slackware diehard myself, but other than one guy pushing out a new Slackware release every so often, there's just not a lot going on there in that space. There's just no community around it. I got the impression that maybe a community was forming around it at one point when it looked like Patrick might be getting some help with the Slackware website. There was the packages browser part of the Slackware site, which started under development and had new features and that sort of thing, but they put up a under construction page saying, this is broken, we're rewriting it in Django, stay tuned. And that was like 2 years ago. It hasn't changed, so I don't know. I think if you don't have community support, there's just community support and transparency. There's just not your project hits a plateau pretty quickly. Anyway, so moving on. Slackware. Slackware is crazy simple. If you're not familiar with the distro itself, it's the oldest existing Linux distribution, and it's crazy simple. All of their packages are vanilla upstream. They change as little as possible. They're ultra conservative. They don't add new packages until it's necessary. They make sure that all of the packages that ship with Slackware are crazy stable, that sort of thing. So you can't contribute packages to Slackware. That's done by the Slackware team, which I think is basically just Patrick. I think his last name is pronounced Volkerting. So when you're packaging for Slackware, you're packaging for a third-party site. The way Slackware manages all of the packages that ship with Slackware is using something called a SlackBuild. And a SlackBuild is just a shell script, like an actual shell script. Let's see. Why did I grab the Python template instead of the... let's see. Auto Tools is probably... Is that visible enough? So as you can see, it's an actual shell script, and the way it works is you make a package build, and you put it in the... Okay, here's SQLite. SQLite actually ships with Slackware, so this package build is from Slackware itself. So you make this shell script, which goes through all of the steps of building your package, and you actually put the tarball of the source code in the same directory as the SlackBuild. So then you run the SlackBuild, it sees the tarball in the same directory and unpacks it and does a bunch of things. Let's see.
So is there any set of tools that are associated, or is it all done within the same shell script?
There is. Let's see. To actually build a final package, you do use one of Slackware's packaging tools. Thanks for asking. Actually, let's talk about those real quick. Oop. Let's see. So Slackware's packaging tool is called Package Tool. And it basically consists of these commands here. And they're all shell scripts. So the packaging tools in Slackware are actual shell scripts. So you've got the basics: install, remove, and upgrade package. You've got make package, which is kind of interesting. It just takes the current directory that you're in and builds a package out of it. So like I said, crazy simple. Sometimes it's kind of nice. Sometimes you got a bunch of files somewhere that you want to throw somewhere onto your system and you want to be able to uninstall it later. So make package makes that pretty quick. But there's also not a lot to it. So yeah, at the end of a SlackBuild, or you do actually make the thing using make package. But this is a pretty straightforward shell script. Sets a bunch of variables up top. Package name, version, architecture, where the temporary root that this is going to get built lives, and any flags you need to build it, and then you actually build it. So you can see it's unarchiving the source, going in there, changing permissions, setting or actually running configure, running make, stripping the other files here. Let's see, setting permissions, putting the files in place and setting permissions. So all pretty, obviously it's a manual process. And then here at the end, you've got the make package command, which takes that build root and actually makes a package out of it. Yeah. So sorry, build root. By build root, I mean it does the install into some temporary directory somewhere and builds a package out of it. So so that's Slackware. There are, let's see. In that directory, there's a couple of files that are required, namely these two: the SlackBuild itself and the slack-description file. And that's just a short little text file that's used in the main package tool. Why don't I show it to you real quick to show descriptions and that sort of thing. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have the CD in here at the moment. Anyway, you get the idea. It's just a text file with a description of the package. So since you can't add packages to Slackware itself, there's slackbuilds.org. And slackbuilds.org is unofficially the official third-party Slackware repository. And to contribute to slackbuilds.org, you also need these extra two files. Yeah, that's it. So I don't know. It's nice. It's simple. Like sometimes you've got a package that was built with flags that are not quite the right flags that you wanted, and so you can just grab the SlackBuild from the official Slackware mirror, change the flag right there, and just run the package build, the SlackBuild, I mean, and there you've got a new package that you can just install over the existing. So it's kind of nice, kind of simple. Anyway, any questions, or shall we move on to Arch?
So that's the entire thing you have to do to package? Why is Red Hat and Debian so much harder?
That is a good question.
Repeat the question into the mic. 'Cause it won't pick me up.
The question is why are Debian and Fedora so much more complicated than this? And the answer is because they do a lot more than this. For example, they both have really involved and in-depth checking, to make sure that you've got everything just right. Whereas with Patrick being the one guy making these packages for Slackware, he can just kind of quality control himself as he's making it. And for something like SlackBuilds.org, the community is so small they're just not getting flooded with these things, and so they can just kind of open these up as they come in and look over them and make sure that they conform to the right formatting and standards and expectations. But with much larger communities like Debian and Fedora, there needs to be more complexity. Then there's also trust issues. None of these packages are signed, for example. Now SlackBuilds.org does sign packages once they accept it and put them up on the site. So you make a Slack build, you upload it to SlackBuilds.org, they look it over, make sure it looks okay, and then they post it on the site. And they actually sign that with their GPG key, and they put a .asc file in the same directory, so you can verify that the package is what it says. Is who it says, I mean. Let's see, this one doesn't have any dependencies. Let's try, what would have dependencies? What's the name of that Postgres GIS library? PostGIS. Let's see. Still no. There's no dependency resolution in Slackware packages, so there's no concept of this package requires these other packages to run. So sometimes that can be annoying in Slackware because you'll install something, try and run it, it'll break. You'll install the thing that's missing, try and run it, it'll break in a different way. You'll install the thing that's missing and try and run it until you've got it. And that's not something that SlackBuild solves either, or tackles. I mean, some people like that, I suppose, because then you know exactly what's going in when you install a package. Or you can tweak the SlackBuild if you disagree on a particular point. But for example, if there is a requirement here on slackbuilds.org, they just list it, in the text. By the way, this package, requires these other packages, and so you have to manually install those yourself before you install this package. So given such a small community, they don't need to be terribly complicated, and they can get away with it. And I think Arch can get away with the simplicity that it does for similar reasons. It's a smaller community, but I think Arch does a really good job of kind of straddling that line between simplicity and complexity, but still, offering a lot of features, and they do have a large-ish community. I mean, nowhere near Debian and Fedora, but large-ish. So, yeah.
So the whole idea of Slackware, it's the distro for the Linux power user?
Yes.
Or the system administrator?
To be completely honest, I don't think I would use Slackware for anything these days. In this day of virtualization, if something goes wrong with a server, you just trash it and spin up a new one. It's not a big deal. You've got configuration management in place to configure it and keep it configured. But if for whatever reason virtualization is not in the cards, and you really need to set up a server that you're going to stick in a closet, and you need it to do one thing for the next 6 years, and you just don't want to look at it ever again, Slackware is your guy. Yep. So let's talk about Arch. So the first thing you need to do when you're building Arch Linux packages is you should probably print out the instructions. They're just a couple of 100 pages printed. I'm kidding. It's this wiki page. That's it. That's all you need to know. You don't even have to read this. You can just grab somebody else's package build and read it and know how to do packaging for Arch. It's pretty nice. But that said, you do actually have to install a pretty heavy suite of tools in order to build Arch Linux packages. No, wait, I'm still kidding. You build Arch Linux packages using Pacman, the Arch Linux package manager. So a package build, an Arch Linux package build is inspired by SlackBuilds. Let's see. I actually had a package build for Unfu. Where did I put that? Oh. Okay. Here's the Unfu package build. You remember Unfu from the previous presentations. This package build is 27 lines long. So it's not a Bash script. It is a Bash script, but it's not run as a Bash script. In fact, I'm a little fuzzy on the details. It may just get sourced from another Bash script because you have to be careful what variables you define in here. Because you might accidentally override a variable that they're using in the parent script. They recommend that you don't define your own variables, or if you have to, then you should prefix them with an underscore. In any case, so it's inspired by a SlackBuild. It's basically, it has to be valid Bash. So, it just defines a bunch of variables, the name, the version, description, architecture, URL, license, depends, optional depends, a link to the URL for the source code, and an MD5 hash of the package itself. And when you're building the package, it'll actually download the source code from this URL that you specify. So basically, to kick this process off, you just need the package build. And then here at the end, there's a little shell function called build, which actually does the building. So as you can see, there's definitely some Slackware inspiration in here, because at the end, you're just dropping down to shell commands. But it automates a lot of that process we saw in the Slackware shell script. Where, with a Slackware shell script, you basically have to start with a template and kind of fill that template out. And this automates a lot of that process. It compresses your man pages automatically. It strips your binaries automatically. It does a couple of other niceties for you. So that's it. And this will give you an installable Arch Linux package.
Tell me about Arch.
So Arch is another very minimalist distribution. They also only use vanilla packages, vanilla upstream packages. They don't do any customizations unless they absolutely have to for breakage reasons or bugs or whatever else. It's interesting to me as an Arch user who's ventured outside, or as an Arch and Slackware user who's ventured outside that ecosystem, how much customization goes on in the Linux community. They just lots of little things, and they're very arguably for good reasons. One that's my favorite example is the Apache package on Debian has the sites available and sites enabled directories with symlinks, and that makes scripting changes to to Apache very, very easy. You know, you need to install a new site in your Apache instance. You throw a text file in a directory and run a little command, and it symlinks that text file, and suddenly your site is available. Whereas you know, on a vanilla distribution, you actually have to go in and edit the HTTP configuration to add another vhost. So there's definitely some advantages for doing it, but it happens all over the place. Just lots of little things. Anyway, the big difference between Arch and Slackware is the Arch package manager does dependency resolution. So if this was depends instead of opdepends, then when you would go to install this, it would also install all of these other packages for you automatically, which is really quite nice. Yeah, anyway, just a really small distribution. It's kind of nice when you're running an Arch Linux system, because when you install it, when the install is over, it just drops you into a command prompt with basically only the basics installed, and from there, you know, you do Pacman install or Pacman-S, I think it is, you know, X11, and you just kind of build a system from scratch like that. And to be fair, you can do that with other distributions, the heavier distributions. Like you can even do that with Debian if you do a minimal install. But, yep. One thing that's always been kind of a black eye on Arch is they have not historically signed their packages. Meaning if a mirror was compromised and somebody altered a package to do something malicious, you would have no way of knowing that that happened when you went to install that package. And that's something that happened to the Gentoo guys way back when. Yeah, anyway, it was kind of a drama, and the Arch guys were kind of dragging their feet, and a lot of people were really upset about it. And anyway, as of semi-recently, as of Pacman 4, come to think of it, I wonder what Pacman I'm running. This is a fresh install. Interesting. So this is a fresh Arch install, and I'm still not on Pacman 4. They're in the process of signing their packages. Pacman 4 has package signing, and they're going through all of their existing packages and signing them, and I guess that's something of a process, so it's taking them a little while. But it's coming. I don't have technical details. I don't know if it's got any pluses or minuses compared to, say, Debian or Fedora. Any questions? Did I mention that this presentation was going to be embarrassingly short?
No, it's awesome. It's not quantity, it's quality.
Thank you.
Very nice, very nice.
I took on Aaron's Debian packages for Salt this last weekend because I wanted to build a PPA for the Ubuntu distribution, and I had never played around with Debian packaging before. And even after sitting through his presentation and learning how it works, it took me, I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of, I'd say, 20 hours to get a working PPA. It was unbelievably frustrating and involved. It's a far cry from just being able to eyeball. Yeah, that's true until it breaks.
Debian packaging part 2 with all the little details.
Oh man, we really do. Like, some of the stuff is just bad design in my opinion. So first of all, you do have to run these helper scripts that like generate this huge skeleton of files for you, and then you have to go through and pull out the ones that you're not interested in and edit all of the ones that you are, and some of these files are just frustratingly useless, like the compat file here, right? It's a text file with the number 7 in it, and And it took me, I don't know, 2 hours to figure out why Launchpad was failing my package. Something wasn't compatible. I had no idea what it was talking about. And it turns out it was talking about this number 7.
It wasn't the right version of Debian then?
Yeah.
Debian 7?
And I don't know what the purpose of it is. Like, I don't know why they couldn't just put it in here. They've got a concept of you know, what version of the package you're building, you know, it needs to have in order to build. And also this deb helper, you know. In fact, I think the reason I might be remembering this wrong, so if I am, I apologize. But it might have been that this version that I'm looking at here didn't agree with the version in the file, and so if it's in 2 places, what's the point of the second? I don't know. There's just a lot of really kind of weird, fiddly things in here.
Yeah, I thought there. Which file is it? Is it the copyright file? Might be that control file. Yeah. You have to put the dots between the description.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck?
Yes.
Otherwise it thinks it's done.
Yep.
You can't possibly be that stupid.
But it is. But it is.
Well, I'm certain for legacy reasons it starts that way and then it never stops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In my opinion, the whole apt system needs a reboot. Like, I understand that apt is powerful and it can solve Sudoku puzzles and stuff, but I don't really want my package manager installing Sudoku puzzles. I just want it to be small enough that I can understand it.
I really love Debian and all, but yeah, like the whole RPM, you just had that one spec file that looks so much nicer just looking at it.
Yes, the spec files did look much nicer. I'd like to dabble in packaging and RPM to see if there's little fiddly things in the corners that that weren't covered in the presentation 2 months ago. But yeah, it looked very nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just jam everything in one file and you're good to go.
Yeah, and also the apt suite of tools is insanely frustrating. You've got, you know, apt, you've got dpackage, you've got apt-get, you've got aptitude, you've got apt-cache, you've got apt-file, you've got apt-whatever else. In contrast, the Pacman, or the Arch Linux package manager, Pacman, is just a thing of beauty. It's all one tool, it's fast, it's written in C, and that one tool can do everything that the entire suite of apt programs are needed to do. You know, you can uninstall a package and have it automatically uninstall all of the unused dependencies. You can, you know, give it the path to a file on your file system and query what package that file came from. You can search. You can. It's all sorts of beautiful. Oh, another thing that's really nice about Pacman and Arch packaging in general is if you've manually installed some package on your system for whatever reason, and you go to install something that depends on that, in Debian, it'll complain because the dependency is not met. And in order to fake the dependency, you have to go through this huge involved process of actually building a fake package and then installing that fake package. And it's non-trivial. I mean, even if you've done it a couple of times, it's still going to take you a few minutes to put something like that together and install it. Whereas with Pacman, you just say, I know what I'm doing, ignore it, and it'll go on its merry way. Pacman's really nice. I've been playing around with Yum for the last couple of days. We're running a CentOS server at my work, and I don't know anything about any of the RPM-based distributions, so I installed Fedora on my laptop and kind of playing around in there. I don't have any insight yet, but I haven't been hating it. It doesn't look like Yum. Does anybody know? It doesn't look like Yum will install unused dependencies. Like Aptitude will do that, which is kind of nice. If you if you install a package that depends on 3 other packages, it'll install all 4, and then you decide you don't need it, so you uninstall that package. Well, those other 3 packages are removed also with aptitude, but it doesn't look like Yum does that. Does anybody know if there's a flag or anything to make it do it?
There probably is.
I don't know. It's not in the even if you don't run Arch Linux, let's see, what is it? Even if you don't run Arch Linux, the Arch Linux wiki is really just a gift to mankind. It's freaking awesome. And because Arch is a vanilla distro, hey Susie. Since Arch is a vanilla distro,
Serious.
a lot of the stuff in the wiki talking about settings to tweak or how things work and that sort of thing isn't Arch specific. So you can generally apply the stuff that's in there to whatever distribution you're using, because that's how the package works upstream. One of the things that's awesome in the Arch Linux wiki is the Pacman Rosetta page, which explains, which has all of these package managers from all of these distributions, and the commands to do the same thing in each. Very cool.
Yeah, that's neat. So what? You did it that way, do it this way.
The thing I don't like about Yum is how slow it feels.
It really is slow. Like even when you do a search or something.
It's like even like you do an install and it's like I need to update everything first. I'm like, can you cache like all these info files? App only gets updates if I tell it.
Yeah, I wonder what triggers that. Like earlier today, in fact, I did just a non-sudo Yum search, and it had to download something.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, what just happened? But I do like how kind of graphically it displays, how it like draws the little sudo tables and stuff, whereas with aptitude it just kind of dumps text out to the terminal.
Here's one thing I think like Fedora did better, because they made Yum and it's like everything's just gonna use Yum. Whereas Debian still hasn't figured out that aptitude is better and they should just use aptitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Also, aptitude has a bunch of dependencies.
Yeah.
Like there was a little debate in the Salt community over the last week or two as to whether or not the apt state should use apt-get or aptitude, and clearly I guess there's a little debate here, but in most situations aptitude is superior to apt-get,
Yeah.
but it's not installed by default all the time, and
Because it doesn't need it.
yeah, and also there's a bunch of dependencies like.
Use the base system and use it. Throws it in there. So I thought it was part of the core base tools.
It's not.